This is what everyone's talking about.
Everything's on the table.
This is what champions come to take. This is what everyone came to see.
And the slam!
No do-overs. No second chances. No more Mr. Nice Guy. This is winner take all. And it's all happening now on the home of the NBA Finals. Don't miss it. June 3rd on ABC and the ESPN app.
If you've ever blasted synth beats from your boombox or burned CDs for your besties, this one's for you. As people get older, much like their music tastes, their health needs change. AG1 is the simple daily health drink designed to deliver over 75 essential daily nutrients and pre- and probiotics to support energy, digestion, and mood, so you can make the most out of every decade and dance break. Learn more at drinkag1.com.
Hello and welcome to The Shift, the podcast that aims to tell the no-holds-barred truth about being a woman post-40. Created and hosted by me, writer and broadcaster Sam Baker. My guest this week is a historian, columnist, television presenter, and vocal advocate for better sex for women. I first encountered Dr. Kate Lister when I stumbled across her brilliant Instagram account, Whores of Yore, along with 500,000 others. In a world where even back in the late 20-teens, where we thought the work was, if not done, then at least going in the right direction, cue hollow laughter, it was still radical for someone to stand up and say that women demanding better sex wasn't a 21st century phenomenon. It has, as Kate has dedicated her life to proving, been a very long fight indeed. Kate's the host of the award-winning history podcast Betwixt the Sheets, writes a weekly column in iNews, and has appeared on countless history programmes, including House Through Time and Victorian Murder Club. Kate's brilliant new book, Flick, A History of Female Pleasure, takes us from Mesopotamia to trad wives by way of orgasms, oral sex, masturbation, frigidity, sexual fluidity, and much more. It's a 300-page battle cry against the idea that when it comes to sex, women want to just lie back and think of England.
The Victorians come in with a new set of strange ideas around pleasure, which is basically that pleasure itself has to be very, very tightly controlled. And it's down to a lot of medicalization around sex, which the Victorians were famous for, because this is the era of the Industrial Revolution, and scientists and doctors are really starting to come into their own and make their own profession, and everything becomes overly medicalized. And sex is absolutely one of those.
Kate joined me to talk about sex as the great leveller, slut-shaming, virginity, and how sex has been used for millennia to control women. We also discussed her perimenopausal period hell, why midlife women could benefit from pleasure education, the price of doing all the emotional labour in the bedroom, and why she wouldn't recommend putting vaginal oestrogen cream on your face. I was just reading some of your columns on the iPaper. I read one you wrote about going into perimenopause in your late 30s, which just pressed all of my buttons.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Well, like that you said, why did nobody warn me about perimenopausal periods, which are
holy fuck,
the worst.
Like biblical events, quite frankly.
I don't know about your experience, but when I remember going to the doctor and going, I'm just like, I can't even get to work. I'm bleeding so heavily, not without like bleeding right through. And them just going, oh, it's normal.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened to my mum as well. And it turns out what happened to my grandmother. My mum was so bad, she ended up having a hysterectomy in her mid-40s. That was like, the late 90s. And look, no one ever mentioned perimenopause to her at any point. No one ever suggested HRT or anything like that. It was just, let's take it all out then. It's wild, isn't it?
Has anyone mentioned it to you? I mean, did you have any idea what your mum and gran had been through?
I did when I started asking them questions about it. And then the family history came out. But it was only because I was trying to work out what the fuck was wrong with me. I didn't understand it. And then you keep going at the GP and the GP keeps saying, I don't know, or you're too young, or like nothing. There was no discussion about hormonal changes. So I was asking my mum, because I was really struggling. I was just getting these blinding migraines. And then by the worst, I was getting them twice a week. Just nobody could do anything. And that was when they started telling me about his family history. And I was like, oh my God, so you went through an early, and so did your mum. Right. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, God.
It's crazy time.
So how are you now?
Much better. Now I've got the HRT, and the thing that stopped the migraines was the testosterone, which when they first mentioned it to me, I was like, do you really want to put me on testosterone? I'm not sure I'm a bit of a menace at the best of times. I'm not sure that you should give that to me. And then I looked up and there was all of this research linking testosterone depletion to migraines. And they did a couple of blood tests like a week apart, and I just didn't have any in my system at all. And yeah, it was the testosterone that stopped the migraines. But I'm doing much, much better now. I mean, it's still not a barrel of laughs, but it's infinitely better than where it was.
And not buckets of blood.
Well, that never happened to me. That happened to my mum. What happened to me was like the bleeding got lighter, but the symptoms got worse.
Oh, right, yeah.
My mood would crash to the floor and like just the darkest thoughts. And then it would be like in the lead up to it, then the actual week of it. So it would be like half the month I was doing this, and the pain and the migraines. And it was just like, it was awful. Are you better now? Are you feeling better?
Yeah, I'm out the other side. Yeah.
Well done.
It's great out here.
Well
Definitely recommend it.
Come in, the water's lovely.
Before we get into the book, which I did absolutely love, but I knew I was going to because I always loved your Instagram account. So,
oh, thank you. That means like this is the very early stages. You see, not a lot of people have read it yet, so I'm still in that. Like, is it all right? Is it okay?
Oh no, it's great. It's great. I mean, you can see I've focused on a few particular chapters, but look, I think it's always the corners and the scribble and the.
I love that.
Yeah, it's a sign. It's a good sign. But before we get on to that, I want to know how you became, as you put it, a history sleuth with a passion for uncovering the wild tales of the past.
Yeah, there's a question. So I've always loved history. I was a bit of a geeky kid. I'd get in trouble for like sneaking off to the library.
Oh my God, you total swat.
I know what, but like oddly, like I didn't do that well in school. Later it came out that I had dyslexia and ADHD, but like I loved history, loved it, and wanted to read about it all the time. And so that it just kept going with that. And then I didn't do very well at university, but I got diagnosis about the dyslexia and the ADHD, which made it a lot easier to study. And then suddenly it became enjoyable when I was approaching it in a different way. And I just decided that's what I want to do. I want to keep studying. I want to keep going. So I did a master's at Leeds Uni, and it was a sort of a general literature and history masters. And then I went in to do the PhD, and the PhD isn't actually in sex history. It's in Victorians writing about women Victorians writing about the medieval period. And I did
specific much.
It's very, very specific. I did what a lot of people do, which is they get about a year into it and they find something more interesting, but then they're not allowed to do that because they've already signed up. So by the time I'd worked out, I really like sex worker history and that's what I want to do. It was, no, you're doing medievalism now, keep going. But I did it for my postdoc. I got a postdoc position to research 19th century sex work, specifically in the Leeds area. And that was when I started a Twitter account called Whores of Yore to tweet my research. That took off and became really big. And that was what everybody wanted to know about. So I was happy to tell them. And then you kind of get the reputation of you're the sex person, which is fine. More than happy to do that. And then so the two things kind of feed on one another. And that was what my research was. And then you kind of end up here. Because I get a lot of letters from people saying, how did you do it? How did you do it? I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, because you'd think, oh, maybe there was a driving mission from, puberty or something to...
I mean, I've always been interested in sex. Like, I've always, even when I was a little kid and I didn't know what sex was, I knew there was something that I wasn't allowed to know about. Obviously, I didn't know what sex was as a child, but I was aware that, why are the grown-ups... But yeah. But I was aware there was something that the grown-ups would change the TV channel, that there was a conversation that was like, shh, not in front of the children. It's like, what? What's the thing? What am I not allowed to know about? So I think I've always been sort of aware of that. And then being able to take that and turn that into a research area. I've really enjoyed that because for me, sex is one of the great human levelers. There's not many of them that's like a universally binding experience. Like food is one, I think, like sleep. emotions, but like we all experience them, whether you are a king or you're a peasant in 14th century Yorkshire. It's something that we all have in common. And it makes us, it levels us out completely. If you look at something like Henry VIII losing his shit completely and breaking up with the church, we've all fancied somebody who didn't fancy us back. Like that's what I mean. Like we can't relate with breaking with Rome and starting our own church, but we know what it's like to have a hell of a crush on someone and be a bit mad because of it. And I like that about sex history.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought of it like that. But yeah, totally. There's just so much I want to talk to you about. When you were just talking about Henry VIII, one of the things that I wrote down was some of the points you make about the fact that, the whole misrepresentation, as you see it, of women not wanting sex, women not liking sex, women just, lie back and think of England and wait for it to be over. And the number of times I've definitely said men, such and such a man thinks with his dick. But like your argument that for most of history, women did not think with their dicks, obviously, think with their vag.
Thought with their clits. Yeah. That's absolutely true. If you'd asked anybody in the ancient world, in the medieval world, going up to the Renaissance, like at least in the Western cultures, they believed quite firmly that women were far more highly sexed than men ever were. And it was all tied in with this idea that we still have today, that women are inherently irrational, emotional, and just more in touch with their emotions than men are. So of course we're more in touch with our sex drive and we can't control it. That's the idea. It's not that they didn't think men experienced sexual desire. They knew they did. It's just they believed that men could control it and that women could not. So women were the liabilities. That was the way that they saw it. And you can trace that right back to like the ancient Greeks. The earliest writing is this idea that women are just more emotional. I say the ancient Greeks, we still do this today, don't we? Is that women are more emotional.
Yeah, that hasn't changed, has it? It's just the manifestation of it.
Exactly. And you see that like going all the way through. And the sad thing is that it didn't mean that throughout history it was like, yeah, you go girl, you get yours then. Well done. If women just want to have more sex, you go off and have more sex. Was like that. It then kind of doubled down to, well, now women have to be controlled. We can't let them indulge this because they will become crazed, nymphomaniac sex banshees who are liable to all manner of terrible behavior. That was the way that they saw it. And it's nonsense. It was nonsense then, it's nonsense now. It's all about control.
It's so, oh God. It's when do you think it started? The kind of messages that say, women of my generation, so I'm like an older Gen X, were given. Like in the chapter I've just shown you where I've scribbled all over the page, you tell a story about sex education in a school in 1913. And one of the things I've written, it doesn't feel like that different from 1978, which would have been when I got mine. Or such as it was, which was like the girls got like filtered off for an hour to talk about periods with Sister Marion from Procter & Gamble and given her Tampax. And we had like an hour video in biology, Mrs. Anthony Roberts, I'll never forget her. And at the end, she turned it off and she went, I knew that they would just completely avoid talking about the erection. And then she started going on about sausages and holes. And we all just like sniggered and sat under, we were like 13, Mrs. Anthony Roberts, legend. I can't even remember. When did it start, do you think, that the messages that we got about sex, that girls got about sex, was bad? Men were allowed it. It's fun for men. Women weren't allowed it. Women didn't enjoy it. Only bad girls did it. It was dirty. It was shameful. You'll get pregnant. You ruin your life. All of those messages, which were very prevalent in the 70s and 80s and are now. When do you think that started? Where does that come from?
So the message that women who enjoy sex are bad women, that's long been with us. Is our history is one of thousands of years of slut shaming. I can point you to many examples, many Roman women who ended up being banished to an island somewhere because they dared to enjoy sex. But really what we're living with now, with that kind of Puritan, the idea that you shouldn't even enjoy sex, That is a Victorian.
Yeah, surprise. Yeah. Bloody Victorians.
They get in everything, don't they? If you'd said to a medieval person that women don't enjoy sex, they'd have been very confused by that idea, because as far as they were concerned, like, women enjoy sex fucking loads, or too much, in fact. And that's why they need to be controlled. But they would also shame women for indulging and not being able to control themselves. The Victorians come in with a new set of strange ideas around pleasure, which is basically that pleasure itself has to be very, very tightly controlled. And it's down to a lot of medicalization around sex, which the Victorians were famous for, because this is the era of the Industrial Revolution, and scientists and doctors are really starting to come into their own and make their own profession, and everything becomes overly medicalized. And sex is absolutely one of those. So the early sexologists, the early psychologists start to pathologize around sex. This has sort of got its origins in the late 18th century, but definitely into the 19th century. And trying to understand what a normal sexual desire is, where it starts and where it ends. And you get this stigma around desire. They invent the categorization of nymphomania in the 18th century, which is a really strange one, because, like, well, where's the line? Yeah. Quite frankly, is because they would also tell women that you're supposed to enjoy sex with your husband, but not too much, otherwise you might, become a nymphomaniac. And the idea that women didn't enjoy sex or weren't supposed to enjoy sex largely comes to us from the Victorians. Now, a caveat to that is that wasn't a universally accepted viewpoint. Not at all. You can find loads of examples. Victorian porn, for example, is full of women enjoying sex. So quite clearly, this wasn't accepted by everyone. But it's like a dominant medical narrative that women are less sex, that they're weaker, that they're more fragile, that the man is strong and that the woman is weak. The man is active and the woman is passive. And it's also the 19th century, you really start to see the separation of the domestic and the public life. Like, obviously people have always gone to work. That's, of course they have. But for the longest time, you'd probably work where you lived. A lot of people would do that. What you get in the 19th century is like people going out to offices, people actually going out.
So kind of urbanization, basically.
It's an urbanization, right? And now you start to get this idea of women in the home, that they're supposed to be in the home, and they're these paragons of virtue in the home. Again, this is a sort of a cultural myth, because the reality of it is that poor women couldn't do this. Like, enslaved women definitely couldn't do this. It's like sit at home around all day just being weak and feeble. But it's a powerful narrative that emerges at the time. And along with that is this idea that women are sexually weaker and more fragile than men and need to be protected.
So it's almost making it aspirational.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. This is the Victorian idea of, they called it at the time, the angel in the house. And it was all to do with being a sort of an opposite, of reading the male as the opposite, that the man goes out and he's active and he's energetic, and that the woman stays at home and she nurtures the children and she loves the children. This was viewed as like a complementary situation. And it was all right that women didn't have any power, because it was all like they had an equal power in the home. That was where their power lay. And this desexing of women is all about preserving this myth of the virginal, chaste woman that's very important for this narrative in order to be able to continue. And part of that was pathologizing sexual desire as bizarre and strange. So a lot of our thoughts around this comes from the Victorians. The idea that we shame sexual desire, that women aren't supposed to feel as much sexual desire as men do, that boys will be boys and that, girls should just stay at home. And those messages are powerful. And I think that they're being unpicked now, but they're still with us.
They're being unpicked, but they are also pushing back, aren't they?
I'm afraid they are. Yeah, they absolutely are. You don't need to look too far to find people wheeling out exactly this kind of crap. Something that could have come straight out of a Victorian pamphlet, even older than that, perhaps. And I think what really bugs me about this idea that women have a weaker sex drive than men, and you see that everywhere, is that, men have needs, boys will be boys, men are allowed to have sex, women aren't, is that it never questions the kind of sex that's being offered. Ever. It's like this idea that women go off sex and that women don't want sex, and that's just accepted as like, oh, well, that's what happens. It's never interrogated. Well, what kind of sex are you providing then? Like what kind of, why do we say that women go off sex and not that most heterosexual sex is shit?
Yes.
Right? Like we have this obsession with penetration in our culture, obsessed with it. And yet that this is heterosexual sex, but like less than 18% of women will orgasm through penetrative sex alone. And yet the whole thing is set up to like prioritize that as the main event. Even the way we talk about things like foreplay, even in the language, it's foreplay.
Yeah, it's not part of it. It's the starter.
Right? And like every single woman listening to this knows the experience of going into a sexual encounter and not having an orgasm. And that we accept that as like, oh, well, that it just didn't show up that time. Like, does that happen with men in the same way? That like, if he didn't have an orgasm, would you be like, oh, well, no, his penis gets to start it and his orgasm gets to finish it. And if you get one, then that's just kind of like a nice addition.
Yeah, that's just, you just lucked out.
You've lucked out. It's nice if you have an orgasm, but it's not essential. And then we have this idea that, but women need to feel love and they need to feel emotion and they need to, the candles need to be on and the ambience needs to be. No, she just needs to be fucked properly.
Yeah.
Stop having terrible sex. Stop shagging women badly and then maybe they'd be into it.
It's like the number of women who I've had on the shift talking about sex who like Emily Nagoski came on and it's the same thing that comes up again and again. It's like, if you don't like sex, tell me about the sex you're having that you don't like.
Yes.
It's not
exactly
sex you don't like. It's like, why do we not talk about the quality of the sex ever?
There's all this work being done at the moment about the unrecognized labor of women in the homes and in the work. And I think that we need to start looking at it in the bedroom as well, because women are doing a lot of emotional labor in the bedroom. Like, if you've ever faked an orgasm, there are people listening to this podcast now, many of them who will. I can't remember what the exact stats are, but like most women have faked an orgasm. And like really ask yourself, why did you do that? I've faked orgasms before. I've vowed to myself now I'm never going to do it again. But the reason I did is because I wanted him to feel good.
Yeah, you didn't do it for yourself, did you?
No, I wanted him to feel like he'd done well.
Unless you wanted it to be over and you thought that would be easier, quicker.
Yeah, that happens. It's not going to happen. It's just not going to show up today. So I'm going to put on this thing so we can kind of. But even that is like, why do we feel that we're not able to just say, look, it's just not going to happen this time? Or could we do something different? We would rather put on a performance to keep somebody's feelings, a man's feelings, from being hurt than actually vocalize what our needs are. And it's a very strange situation and that we do and we keep doing. And all of that is emotional sexual labor. And we have to stop doing it because there's so many men out there walking around who think that they're fantastic in bed and they're not.
No, her episode's not out yet, but I had a guest on, Katrina O'Sullivan, and she was talking about when she met her current partner, and she was like, she was the first woman ever to say to him, hang on, we're not finished. We aren't finished here.
That's such a radical act. Like, how many people, like women listening who have sex with men, can like say that is that if he orgasms and you haven't, that you would feel confident enough to be able to say, actually, we're not done here. Sunshine, you need to get back down there and I'm going to get mine. Like that, like, I don't think that's even been researched, that particular topic, but I would put money on the fact that most women do not do that we just kind of go, oh, well, you were fabulous. Thank you so much. And that it's all labor. It's all like we make the act about him. We want him to feel good. We want him to feel that he's doing well. It's all right if we're not, and we're not advocating for our own pleasure nearly enough.
Because we're taught that we're not entitled to it, or there's a shame attached to it.
There's a shame attached. And we have these messages that we're like, look, men just really like sex. Men just, they want to have sex all the time. So we're constantly going into heterosexual encounters. And if the sex is bad, there's something in the back of your head that goes, oh, but it just kind of is though. Or like you don't recognize that it's mediocre or that it could be better, or we don't vocalize for ourselves because we receive this message of like, yeah, but it's, it's never, it's all right. It's never that great. And we're not questioning ourselves about like, well, we could be having better sex. And I've never believed that men are more highly sexed than women ever. And like, in fact, most of the straight women that I speak to is like when they first get together with a partner in those early crazy days, and you really ask them who wanted sex more. They did. They wanted, their desire was like off the fucking charts. They wanted it all the time. And then, maybe the sex isn't that great. Maybe they're not vocalizing what they need. They're not speaking up for themselves. They've got into a cycle of faking orgasms. So now they keep faking orgasms. And if what's on offer is some penetration and then he got orgasms and goes to sleep, And then we're confused why women aren't banging their doors down every day going, please, let me have some more of this.
This episode of The Shift is sponsored by Shopify. I can clearly remember starting The Shift. It's such a leap, isn't it? Going out there on your own, doing a new thing. I mean, what if it doesn't work? What if nobody listens? What if all the tech comes crashing down around me? Now, over 5 years and over 250 episodes later, I know different, of course. Starting The Shift was the best thing I ever did. And it helps to have a partner like Shopify on your side to help. For a start, they'll help you get the word out, like you have a whole marketing team behind you, with easy-to-run email and social media campaigns. Shopify's your commerce expert, with world-class expertise in everything from managing inventory to shipping, returns, everything. And if you get stuck, their award-winning 24/7 customer support is always around to advise. It's time to turn those what-ifs into... with Shopify today. Sign up for your £1 a month trial today at shopify.co.uk/shift. Go to shopify.co.uk/shift. That's shopify.co.uk/shift. You were in a reasonably long-term relationship, weren't you? And then you've been single for quite a long time. Has your personal attitude to sex changed since you've been single?
Yes, definitely. Definitely. So I was in two very, very long-term relationships kind of back to back. So I'd been, and I never cheated on any partners. So I'd been with like these two guys. And then they both broke up spectacularly. And then I just entered this epic hoe period of just like, right, let's just go. I'm going to experiment. I'm going to do everything. I've never had the chance to do it. And I kind of went into that again, doing this thing that like I've heard a lot of therapists describe as performing sex. Like you're performing desire, you're performing enjoyment, you're putting on a show basically for your partner. And I did that for a long time until I just sort of realized, why am I doing that? Why am I is this for me or is this? I think because I wanted them to think that I was great in bed and my like what way of doing, because you know sex is so important for men. So and I knew that the sex that I was going to get with them was not going to be epically amazing, and for some reason didn't feel able in those early days to speak up and say, please, can we do something else? I don't want to do that. And so yeah, I was performing it because I wanted it to be great for them and sort of missed the part of the conversation where it should be great for me as well. So now that has changed with all like the research that I've done and the work that I've done and my own personal experience. It's like you have to speak up and advocate for yourself. And I think that's been really important for me going along. So yeah, it's definitely changed my attitude to sex, definitely.
Can you remember what your own sex education was? Not that you're that old, but cast your mind back.
It was, do you know what? My mum and dad got me like an Usborne book of where babies come from, basically, and sort of gave one to me and gave one to my brother and said, any questions, you know where we are.
So
I remember like reading through this book and just be like, wow, what on earth is this?
So many questions.
So like, what is happening here? And if I remember correctly, like it had a picture of like the penis in the vagina and it had a picture of the man lying on top of the woman. So for like the longest time, I thought that was just sex. He just lies on top of you, and then that's kind of it. There was obviously, you know, you're not going to supply any more details to a child, but that was my like, what's happening here? That's very strange. And then we did get a sex education at school, but it was very much on the lines of the sperm meets an egg, and then the fallopian tube does this, and then 9 months later, there's a baby. I'm too old to have got the condom on a cucumber education.
Oh, yeah. See, that's what I had.
Oh, did you have that one?
Oh, yeah. But that was because Mrs. Anthony Roberts was enraged by the floppy sausage.
Oh, go on. See, yeah, there we go. See, she was a legend. No, we didn't put condoms on cucumbers, and we didn't have any discussion around things like STIs or anything like that. No. It was very functional. It was very, this is how you make babies, was the sex education.
And explicitly was it explicitly within marriage?
They didn't mention marriage. It was a given. There wasn't any discussion around gay sex or queer sex, or there was certainly, I don't know why you'd tell children about foreplay, but there was nothing in that. But it's interesting actually, because I think it's the World Health Organization, and they've got a manifesto on sexual pleasure. And lots of people are pointing this out, is that the sex education that we have at the moment is much more comprehensive than floppy sausages and sperms, meat, eggs. But it still frames sex as something quite scary and something to be avoided, and something like it's got consequences. You can get pregnant, you can get an STI, can ruin your life. We don't have any discussions around pleasure. We don't have any discussions around the fact that the reason people do this is because it's a fun thing to do. I'm not suggesting we start giving sex tips to junior schoolers or anything mad like that. But it's just interesting that even the sex education today, it comes with this fairly hefty tag of like, and be fucking careful, everybody, because you might get a disease, you might ruin your life, it might, and those are the messages that are absorbed quite early on. Pleasure never seems to be part of that conversation, really. And for me, pleasure's really, really important, because pleasure, it really gets to the heart of things like consent, respecting people's bodies, respecting people's boundaries, advocating for yourself, for understanding that sex should be pleasurable, what your body is capable of. I think that those are all really, really important discussions to be had. And we often don't have them enough. And particularly discussions around women and pleasure. It's not just in the bedroom, but like the wider discussion around pleasure of, leisure time and looking after yourself and being entitled to say no and being entitled to downtime and being entitled to pursue your own hobbies and perhaps not giving and giving and giving and giving of your energy and yourself to everybody else but you, and then wondering why you're burnt out, and in one case having crap sex, but in another case being absolutely exhausted and having nothing left. Pleasure is an important conversation, I think, with women. We give pleasure to other people. We're not very good at taking it back for ourselves.
No, and it's because so much as what I was taught was in the 70s and 80s. And you do see some, obviously things have come a long way since then, but also at the same time, it hasn't. There are other different pressures. I mean, one of the things that really interests me is that the kind of, and I would be really surprised if any of the women I knew, if I said, actually, do you want a sex education class? They went, yeah, let's go for it. But at the same time, I do think that loads of women in the so my age, I'm late 50s, who were getting sex education in the 70s and 80s, they didn't know that there was any alternative to heterosexuality. They weren't taught anything like consent. What was that? Any of those things. I mean, you could still, I was working as a journalist when they changed the law, and you could, when was it, 93, when rape in marriage became illegal, became a thing, became a possibility. And I do wonder about that, about the sex education for like women in midlife, or I want to ask you about galloping catastrophes in a minute. But, women in midlife who are like either still in long-term relationships or back out there, who basically haven't had sex education.
Yeah, they haven't had sex education. And then you're trying to figure it out for yourself, and you're trying to work out where to go. And like we're lucky in some ways now that the internet is available with a plethora of information. But even then, it's like information overload. Where do you go? And I think that, what do you believe? Who do you listen to? And you're constantly, even the fact that like you're saying that women would recognize that they need sex ed, I think that that's hugely important. And I think that a lot of people don't, because they've internalized these narratives that, sex is all right, but it's not really for you. And, men enjoy it a lot more than women. And they're just walking around thinking that these things are true when they're not. I would love everyone to get pleasure education and, proper sex education, and start discussions around, what feels good for you? What do you like? And like to really ask women, like when the actual acts of sex itself, where are you in that? Are you enjoying it? Are you performing it for somebody else? Do you feel confident in asking for what you want? Do you feel confident pleasuring yourself? Where are these messages coming from? I would love everyone to have, we should, like everybody has to redo their driving test. Everyone should have to redo sex ed.
Yes, yeah.
That would be great, wouldn't it? Like we've updated it now, guys. No, it's all right to masturbate now, and it's not just for having babies. It's been updated.
Yeah, that kind of the dividing sex education from kind of procreation, which it absolutely wasn't when most of us were that is a huge thing, isn't it?
And that narrative is still, and it's back, and it seems to be like doubling down, and it's stronger than ever. Like, when they're rolling back reproductive rights for women, I mean, it's a lot of it is it really about, pro-life and all this stuff, or is it about control? Is it about shaming women for having sex and about forcing this idea that sex is only for making babies and you should deal with the repercussions of it? Because if you can't access reproductive health care, then we're back in a situation that women have faced for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, which is that pregnancy is a very real consequence and that you are going to be left holding the baby. The fact that we can now control our reproductive systems is a seismic shift in the human experience. That's not happened before. And there's this huge pushback against it. And it's not really about preserving life or anything like that, in my opinion, because there's plenty of babies out there who desperately need help and, these people aren't showing up for them. It's about forcing back this idea that sex is for making babies, sex needs to be within a marriage. And the whole system of heterosexual marriage, making people get married, is predicated on sex for babies because you need somebody to raise the baby. If you're going to have sex, you might get pregnant. And then for the longest time, we exist in a system where women are going to be shamed and punished for doing that. And it's going to be so difficult for you to try and raise a baby by yourself. It's just it's terrifying. You probably wouldn't even try it. So you have to get married in order to have sex, to have the babies. And now the woman has to stay at home. The pill changed all of that. It's not just about being able to have sex. It's about being able to say when you want to have a baby. And then from that comes so many other freedoms, because you can go to work, you can pursue a career, you can have an education. Because what was the point of a woman going to university to study to be a doctor if she's just going to get pregnant and have to have a baby by the time she's 18 years old anyway? The pill radically changed all of that. And this pushback against women's rights, and we need to be so careful with it because it's the thin end of the wedge. It's not just abortion, it's birth control is being discussed, it's sexual behavior is being policed. And the thin end of the wedge is it's women's liberation that is in question here. That's what's under threat. It isn't just about sex, it's about controlling sex and controlling women.
Well, when we live in a world where a senior member of the American government can stand up and say that a woman is a diversity hire.
We're now living in this weird world. I was thinking about it just the other day. I was researching the Profumo affair. I was just like that was a world where if a politician lied or got caught out in a lie, they just had to resign. And now the lies come so fast and so thick, and the things that are being said in America and in the UK, in our politics, they're so extreme that we've also almost become numb to it, to the insanity of it.
It's totally normalised, isn't it?
Terrifyingly normalised.
Yeah, it's really funny you say that, because I did catch myself thinking, God, I almost hanker for the days when those grand old Tories used to fall on their swords if they got into trouble. It's just wow, they look reasonable now,
I wouldn't want it back, but I'd certainly want a system where if a politician got caught telling a lie, that's them done. That you can't survive that politically. That you have to resign. That's just not the case. There's so many lies being thrown at us now, and that's quite a terrifying place to be in, because when we're dealing with things like legislating around women's reproductive health, which by extension means women's social health and freedom, it's terrifying that we've got a bunch of liars in and people that just don't tell the truth. It's just, I don't think I'd want the 1950s and 60s back, but I definitely want the politicians who went, I've been caught out telling a lie, now I've got to resign. I'd like that back.
Yeah, individual and collective responsibility is just
absolutely.
What the fuck is that?
Absolutely.
Let's change the subject. Let's talk about galloping catastrophes. I'm so here for the galloping catastrophes. I am a galloping catastrophe. I'm happy.
So that was a phrase that there was a book published, and it was called Feminine Forever. It was published in the late 50s or the early 60s by a guy called Robert Wilson. And
the horrible HRT man.
The HRT man. And he was paid by the early HRT companies to write this book and to do this research, basically. And in one way, it was we're talking about menopause and women, and we're talking about HRT, and he's giving them a solution. And if you're being very generous, you could be like, well, thanks, Rob. That's good to get the ball rolling with this. But he does it by absolutely stigmatizing women in menopause. And one of the things that he calls them, a woman without HRT, is a galloping catastrophe, which is just the most insane. But also, I'd love that on a T-shirt.
Yeah, honestly, please do the merch. Do the merch. I am at the front of the queue.
I am a galloping catastrophe. I mean, it's vicious, this book that he does. Because he paints menopause as it's a disease that needs to be treated, that it is the death of femininity, that he calls it a castration. It's vicious what he's doing in this book. And then he's like, but don't worry, you could have this HRT and then you'll be feminine forever.
Yeah, I read some of it when I was writing the book of The Shift. And but if you've also probably looked at all those ads from Primarin from the 50s and 60s, where they're like, basically, you can be this old hag, or you can be this gorgeous babe standing by the stove with a pie. It's like...
Yeah. The dichotomy of it, of like, look, if you don't do this, you're going to shrivel up and become a galloping catastrophe and this wizened old hag. And it's terrifying. It's so blatant in this work. But I do look around sometimes and wonder just how far we've come from that, actually. Some conversations that are going on at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, we could be, honestly, once you get me on menopause, then you're here for the week, basically. Forget your weekend. We're not leaving.
I'm thrilled that we're talking about menopause and perimenopause, and these conversations are important. But it does allow for a lot of people to jump into the gaps and, again, start selling you products and selling you shit, basically, on the idea that you need specialist equipment now that you are a woman in menopause. And it's almost always just the same regular shit, but in a purple box.
Yeah, exactly, like menopause tea, which was like nearly £2 dearer. And it just made it pink. I know.
The fuck is that? I've seen menopause vibrators. I've menopause shampoo. Menopause. And it's just like, you might need to be aware of some things when you're going through these kind of changes. But the idea that you need a complete overhaul of everything in your life and now need specialist equipment for everything, that I find that quite alarming.
It's a marketing man's dream, isn't it, basically? And it's like, and then it gets really scary with, like people suddenly putting estrogen cream on their faces.
My God, women, no,
like,
don't do it.
Stop it. No.
Don't. That's a craze at the moment, putting vaginal estrogen cream on your face. And the thing about that is just we don't have enough long-term studies to be able to say what the impact of that is. There was a piece of research published in just March this year, which is an overview of all the research that's been done on what's called topical estrogen cream, vaginal estrogen cream on the face. And since the 80s, there's been 14 studies. 14 studies on this. Like, to compare that, there's been over 17,000 on erectile dysfunction, but there's been 14 studies on this. And the results are kind of patchy with it. Like, none of them were long-term. And the results found that, look, even at really low levels, the estrogen does get into your system. And we just don't know what the long-term effects of that will be. It might be fine, but it might not be fine. And we just don't know. So it's not a good idea to put vaginal estrogen cream on your face long-term, especially when we know that there are like creams like retinoids and things like that that actually work. But you think like selling women stuff that they don't need, crap that they don't need. And I worry again that we're making menopause a terrifying thing.
Yeah. It's like, talk about it. Give us the information.
Exactly. We want information. I do worry that, it's great that people are talking, but it has become a marketing ploy. And I'm concerned that we're making menopause into this terrifying thing again, which isn't a million miles away from Robert Wilson. You'd be a galloping catastrophe and that you need to, go and get hormones and go and get this and go and get the other. And for some women like me, hormones really, really, really helped me. They were absolutely incredible. But I definitely internalized messages that like, this is going to be shit. This is going to be an absolute hellscape. And I think that we do, how am I going to phrase this without sounding like a twat? And I don't mean to, but like, I think that we're perhaps we need to try and look at menopause more as like, it's not a disease. Sometimes I worry that is like that's the message that we're sending out, is it's a disease and it needs to be treated now. And it's like, and it's not a disease. It's just part of being alive. Oh, and the one thing that I do flag up in the book, this is my number one irritating menopause myth, and if anyone says it around you, please just kick them, is the idea that women in the past didn't live long enough to experience menopause. I've heard that by really prominent menopause specialists saying that, of like, because, and normally when they're challenged about like, but menopause is natural, right? Like, I know it can be a fucking bumpy ride, like puberty and everything, but this idea that like it needs to be stopped at all costs and they normally respond by saying, yeah, but women, they're living longer now. In the past, they wouldn't have experienced menopause.
Tell that to all the old women who were grannies and witches and yeah.
Exactly. It's just, that is absolutely not true. Is that whenever people crunch the numbers around average age of mortality in the past, it's always dragged down by infant mortality, which was round about 50% until quite recently in our history. It's grim reading. But if you made it to puberty, you stood a reasonable chance of making it to old age and definitely past menopause. So it's not true.
The situation could be changed because it's like I said, it's about information, isn't it? And so when you're going through it like you did and I did, when you're feeling like absolutely shit and you don't know why. And if you knew why, it would make everything different. So it's not like we have to go, menopause is really, really terrible and we need to treat it like it's an illness. Just need to go, it can be. We're all people. Everybody's different. Everybody has a different puberty. You know, and everybody's going to have a different menopause, and you might have nothing. You might have migraines. You might bleed rivers, you know, anything.
You know, I had so much trouble, like even convincing the GP that they wouldn't even test me for it. They just kept saying I was too young, which is surely the only time a woman wants to hear those words in their entire life. It's like, I think when I first went, I was in my late 30s, and they were just like, look, we're not even going to test you. It can't be this. It must be something else. And they gave me migraine medication, and then it kept happening. And I was really worried because I'd left my job as a full-time university lecturer to be freelance. And I loved the work that I was doing, but I was aware now that I don't have any sick pay. And if I stop working, this is it. And like the migraines and the symptoms were getting so severe, I was really worried that this is going to fuck me up. This is like, if I want to do filming or if I want to do writing, I can't, my head. And I was so scared. And I ended up going private. I ended up Snap. And that shouldn't be happening. So, I mean, so like we've got lots of things that shouldn't be happening. It's like, you don't need to frighten. It would have been so great if just the conversation had been, oh, you're having headaches and migraines and there's a history of early menopause in your family. Oh, do you want to try these hormones then, Kate? And then I could have walked away and just gone, that was great. And none of that needed to happen. It didn't need to be scary and it didn't need to be, you know, shaming or any of those things. But as it was this huge fucking battle to get any help whatsoever. And I remember going to the GP for like the umpteenth time. And she turned around and she said, well, what do you want to do? Just like, you're the doctor. I want you to tell me help me. And it was just like, I don't know what I want to, I just don't want to feel like this. And it was, you know, it's such a bad, I mean, I'm very lucky in one way because if I forget names, places, dates, what I'm doing, it's like, I might just sound like a bit of an idiot on a podcast, or I might have to, you know, I might take a moment to look up something in a book. I often think about, like, what about like women surgeons? Or like women, like really high-powered who have like a moment of brain fog and are just like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, they can't just go, oh, brain fog, like I can when I'm recording.
No,
just go, oh.
It's like blood spurting all over the surgery room. Sorry. So I think it's amazing that we're talking about it and like looking at the history of menopause. It has always been framed as something that women should be scared of and need to treat. And it comes with this really nasty message about how it's the death of femininity. And certainly when it comes to sex, there's long been this idea of like, yeah, but women just don't have sex when they're older. They just don't. It just packs up and goes home. And then that's it.
And that's meant to be a relief as well. It's like, oh, you don't have to do it anymore.
Yeah. The weird thing about menopause is that it really didn't even start to be a thing in medical literature until the 18th century. And it was the French leading the charge with it. Like if you go back to the Greeks and the Romans and the Renaissance, they just don't talk about it. They talk about the age that menstruation stops. They're very interested in that. Sometimes you can find people that go, oh, they seem to be a bit sweaty around that age as well. But that's kind of it. But it was the French that really started to medicalize this. And And they would call it, they call perimenopause the insurrection, which I quite like.
Eczema is unpredictable, but you can flare less with Ebglyss, a once-monthly treatment for moderate to severe eczema. After an initial 4-month or longer dosing phase, about 4 in 10 people taking Ebglyss achieved itch relief and clear or almost clear skin at 16 weeks. And most of those people maintain skin that's still more clear at 1 year with monthly dosing.
Ebglyss, lebrikizumab LBKZ, a 250 milligram per 2 milliliter injection, is a prescription medicine used to treat adults and children 12 years of age and older who weigh at least 88 pounds or 40 kilograms with moderate to severe eczema, also called atopic dermatitis, that is not well controlled with prescription therapies used on the skin or topicals, or who cannot use topical therapies. Ebglyss can be used with or without topical corticosteroids. Don't use if you're allergic to Ebglyss. Allergic reactions can occur that can be severe. Eye problems can occur. Tell your doctor if you have new or worsening eye problems. You should not receive a live vaccine when treated with Ebglyss. Before starting Ebglyss, tell your doctor if you have a parasitic infection.
Ask your doctor about Ebglyss and visit ebglyss.lilly.com or call 1-800-LILY-RX or 1-800-545-5979.
I think they do, not much, but teach a tiny bit about menopause in French schools, because I think I was talking to Caroline de Maigret when she came on. She said it was like minimal, but it was mentioned. It was at least mentioned.
Nobody mentioned it to me. Did anyone mention it to you at school?
No,
I hadn't heard a thing about
British
it.
schools, English.
Nope.
No, but they did. She said it wasn't like a whole lesson or anything, but it was mentioned. So you're like at least aware of it.
Yeah, I had no idea. To me, menopause was something that's going to happen in my mid-50s. And what will happen is that everything will just kind of wind up gently. And then there'll just be a slow, just like, thanks for that, Kate. It was nice to know you for a while. And then menstruation's gone. That's what I thought would happen. The idea that it can start rocking in your 30s I had no clue.
But also that kind of prevailing idea, which is that there's no purpose for you. Oh, you might be a grandmother.
See, that's the other thing that is shitty about that idea that women didn't live past menopause in the past, because it reinforces the idea of like, well, then that's you then. You are done. The leading theory as to why humans have menopause, because there's only a few species that actually do this. Whales do it, and I think there's a monkey species that does it as well. Because if you're thinking about it, if you're thinking like from a purely anthropological point of view, it is kind of a weird thing, because like for the first 15 years of your life, you're not fertile, you're not going to have any babies. And even then, it's probably not safe for you to have babies until you're probably in your about 18. So you've got 18, and then by the time you get to your 40s, like it's getting harder. So you have this like 15, 20 years window of like peak fertility before, and then, so you're going to spend the rest of your life in a non-fertile period. When you actually look at that, the fertile bit is actually much smaller than the non-fertile bit. So from an anthropological point of view, why do they do that? And the leading theory is what's been called the grandmother hypothesis, which I love, which is the theory that the reason that we don't continue to be fertile is because we're supposed to be social creatures by nature, and older women are supposed to be able to help younger women take care of their children, because human children are very cute, but they're useless. And they remain useless. They remain useless for quite a long time. They have zero survival skills. They need a lot of attention and a lot of care. And you couldn't do that if everyone around you keeps having babies. So the theory is that it's because we're supposed to be a social group, and women go through menopause because we're collectively supposed to be raising children together.
Yeah, and our entire purpose as women is either to have children or to help other women look after them.
To pass on knowledge.
So before I ask you the questions I always ask, tell me about Benjamin Franklin's 8 Reasons Older Women Make Better Lovers, which made me howl with laughter and rage when I read it.
He's such a scallywag, isn't he? Like, you read it and you're so horrified by it, but it's also quite funny. You're just like, oh, you bastard, you absolute bastard.
The quote as well at the beginning of the chapter about the lower parts continuing to be as plump as ever. It's like... The actual fuck. I'm sorry, if you're listening, you're just going to have to read it, because the quote is quite long. And much as I'm tempted to sit here and read out the whole thing, it just wouldn't be fair. But tell us about the 8 reasons, because it's just like, I'm sorry.
It's an insane piece of work that Benjamin Franklin one of America's founding fathers wrote. It's like a piece of advice, a letter that he's supposedly writing to a younger friend who was interested in taking a wife. And he writes back with a list of 8 reasons why older women make better lovers. And it ranges from like they can't have babies, so you don't have to worry about that, through to they'll be so grateful. That was another one.
Yeah.
That they're better conversationalists was one of the nicer ones he put. The one that you've mentioned there, that basically says that when you put a basket on their heads, you'd never know the difference. Thanks, Ben. Absolutely stellar work there.
One of the founding fathers.
I know. It's clearly supposed to be a comical work, but even then, we hope. But even then, it's drawing on like quite vicious narratives about older women, the sexuality of older women, the fact that the sexuality of older women is held up for comedic value, which I think is still something that we are dealing with today.
The whole cougar bollocks.
Well, but the cougar, but also even older than that, because the cougar tends to be a middle-aged woman.
Yeah.
What about women in their 70s and 80s? And, we still have this, we still desexualize older adults as a culture. We still remain deeply, deeply uncomfortable with that. And there's been all kinds of brilliant research on this. And there's lots of fantastic campaigners, like Joan Price is brilliant, a woman campaigning around sexual rights for older people. But we do have this idea that as soon as you get to your twilight years, that's it, you're done. Why would you be having sex? We infantilize older people, like, oh, it's so cute. Or we might think of their sexuality as like deviant, like, oh my God, you pervert, like, why are you having sex at all? And that's still something that we're dealing with. I don't recall the last time I saw older people having sex in a TV or film movie. It's always young, glorious, able-bodied, almost always.
I can't think of any either.
No.
If you're listening and you can think of a good example or even a bad example,
do write in.
Message me.
Do write in.
Message me. I could talk to you for hours. I've got I'm sitting here looking at my Hildegard of Bingen quote about women in their 60th year dry up and enfolded around their openings. And
yes, Hildegard. That was, again, it's like linked to this understanding that when menstruation ends, that you are effectively fertile, because you're not fertile anymore, that your sexual reproductive capacity is at an end, and that you would now not want to have sex. You see that in the medical literature of the time going up to the 19th century. I think we still do it. There's still a real problem with us talking about and understanding the sexual needs and capacities of older people, especially older women.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, when I was writing The Shift, there's a woman, oh God, I'm really sorry, I can't remember. Her first name's Jane, can't remember her surname. And she wrote a book about an appalling experience of vaginal atrophy she had. The entire book is about her hunt to get taken seriously, to get some help. But, she had doctors literally, basically like use it or lose it. And basically she was told, and these are my words, not hers, but she was basically told the only way to deal with it was basically to fuck her way through it.
What?
Can you imagine saying that to a man with a split penis? Oh, you just have to keep going. You'll get used to it. It's like...
That's extraordinary. That's just awful, isn't it? That's, oh God, that poor woman.
And that's recent. That's within the last, I was 6 years ago, I was writing the book, 6 or 7. And
it feeds into like what's been called the invisible woman syndrome, which is that as you age, you start to disappear from the male gaze and you sort of feel your power base starting to slip because you're no longer in this first flush of youth, and you start to notice it. And then as you're getting older, you're becoming more and more desexualized within the patriarchal view. And women internalize this. And there's been lots of research done on this, on like women feeling embarrassed about having sexual desires and experiences in their older years, or feeling that there's nowhere for them to go, or like how do you meet people? And these are really serious issues that need to be addressed. And it's all part of this packaging and these messages that sex is only for young, able-bodied, fertile people.
Before I ask you questions, I always ask, what's the main thing that you've learned since you're only in your early 40s, but since being back in your kind of 10, 12 years back out there, living a single life, what was the best bit of advice you would share for midlife, older woman, single or not single, but just about sex?
I would say don't fear singleness. Don't. I think it's such a fucking con that we've been fed, and not just women, but men as well, is that you have to get paired up, and that if you're not, that it's terrible, and that there's a stigma, and that there's something wrong with you, and like, oh, don't worry, you'll find somebody soon. It's amazing. Like, it's so good. Like the peace and the quiet and the just being able to do things on your own terms, in your own way, the way that you want to, and just use your energy and focus it back towards yourself. It's amazing. If I could go back and see myself as a very young woman, I think I'd probably just say don't get in any relationships and just be single the entire time.
Right. What's your emotional age?
Oh, my emotional age. That's a very good. It depends what day you catch me on. Probably, I think. No, I like my emotional age now. I think, 44. I'm happy with an emotional age of 44.
Brilliant. Give us a book recommendation. It can be anything. A lifelong favourite, or a great thing you read last week. Anything.
My favourite history book is Wedlock by Wendy Moore, and it tells the story of a woman in the 18th century who is married to possibly the worst husband that has ever existed, and how she manages to challenge him and get out of it. It's just incredible. It's such a good story, and her writing's amazing. So Wedlock by Wendy Moore.
Brilliant. I think you really just answered this, but I'll ask it again. What advice would you give younger women?
Speak up for yourself when it comes to sex. Don't do emotional labour in the bedroom as well. Understand that if he has orgasmed, that it's not over, that you have an orgasm too. Don't fake orgasms, and be confident in asking for what you want. Don't perform sex.
Who's your old bird role model?
Oh, Dawn French. Possibly Miriam Margolyes as well. Just to give that, to just not give a fuck on that kind of epic level of not giving a fuck I aspire to. Dawn French just makes me laugh, absolute pioneer in comedy. And I firmly believe, and have believed for some time now, that we'd be really good friends.
Totally.
She gives that vibe, doesn't she? She must be so sick of people.
Yeah, everybody wants to be her friend.
Everyone wants to be her friend.
What's your superpower?
Not thinking through a situation fully enough before committing to it, which people often say for things that I take on. They go, "Oh, you're very brave." I'm like, "Am I? I didn't think that through enough before I said yes to it." So I quite like that. The impulsivity, I think.
Yeah, keep that thing. And last one, how many fucks did you give?
I'm working towards 0, but I think I probably give about 10 fucks at the moment. But it's much less than I used to give. But I'm working towards net 0 fucks. Thank
you for listening. If you enjoy The Shift and would like to show your appreciation, why not buy me a coffee? Go to www.buymeacoffee.com/The Shift with Sam Baker. You can hear a new episode of The Shift every Tuesday, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like what you hear, please do rate, review, follow, tell your friends, because it really does help other people find us. And if you'd like to know more about my own experience of shifting, my book, The Shift, How I Lost and Found Myself After 40, and you can too, is out now in paperback.